What's up, everybody? Mr. Dan here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Martial Arts Monday review. And I'm coming off a couple weeks ago reviewing a few of the sister Street Fighter films starring Tsuchiyomi. In the past I reviewed a lot of Bruceploitation films, and I've also reviewed all of the Bruce Lee films and made a ranking video, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So check that out. Check out that review, please. And I do like my Bruceploitation movies. Before the sister Street Fighter films, I reviewed Enter the Panther, a very unusual Bruceploitation starring my favorite sort of the imitators, Ho Jintao, Bruce Lee, L.I. Well, today I'm going to review a movie that was a bonus movie in the Game of Clones set from Severin, this wonderful box set of Bruceploitation cinema, and this one stars Bruce Lee, but just one E. Now I have, and the reason I pulled this out, there's a better picture of him here. He's in this movie very briefly, playing the same character that Bruce Lee played in The Big Boss. This film that I'm reviewing today is The Big Boss 2, a very rare one, just like Enter the Panther, one of the more rare Bruceploitation films. As a matter of fact, apparently there was one surviving print of this that they rescued, and this was actually a bonus in the Bruceploitation set. So it doesn't get this treatment here where you have the cast and everything. They don't really talk about it in the booklet at all. But when you watch the film, you can watch it. I forget what they call the mode, but you click on it, and it's like the Kung Fu Theater mode with Michael Wirth, one of the contributors to the documentary, and just an all-around great guy, martial arts enthusiast and fan. And he basically is kind of standing in like a mock-up of a lobby of like a Kung Fu theater with posters in the wall, and he just introduces it. So he tells you about how rare it is and everything. You might as well just watch it in that mode. It only takes a minute or two, and that's always pretty cool. This actually just came in the back. I think this was like limited to a certain number of people. The first, couple thousand that bought this set, and it was actually in a horrible, well, it wasn't a horrible blue paper sleeve. It was in a blue paper sleeve that didn't really fit in here, so I ditched it. So there it is, unceremoniously right there. And there's actually two movies on that, but one of them is The Big Boss 2. Anyway, yeah, a sequel to a Bruce Lee movie. So definitely a Bruceploitation film, and kind of high up on the scale, meaning that it has a lot of the things that the Bruceploitation films have. Some of the same people that were in The Big Boss. Interestingly enough, this film stars Lo Lei. So in a way, this is almost like a Lo Lei exploitation as well, because you got Lo Lei in a Bruceploitation film, but there are some actors from Five Fingers of Death in this movie too. And this is directed by the assistant director from The Big Boss. Have you got all that straight? Because it was kind of confusing to me for a while. I went back and forth between Internet Movie Database, which for the Bruceploitation actors, they've got a lot of wrong information. So that's what it is. Wrong birth dates and things. They get them mixed up. And the Hong Kong Movie Database, some of them have multiple versions of their names. Very confusing. Anyway, this is kind of a fun movie. Now, when I did Enter the Panther, I kind of said, listen, I can't really recommend this to the average fan. This is more for the curious, the real fans of Ho Jintao, Bruce Lee, Bruceploitation films. The quality on this one wasn't good. They did the best they could. The quality on this one is a little bit better. This one is probably a little borderline. Like, I think fans of Bruceploitation will really kind of get a kick out of it. But if you're just a casual fan and you want to just watch kind of a typical Kung Fu film, you're not going to see anything you haven't really seen before, maybe. Then this is a pretty enjoyable one. Maybe if it's a little over long. I mean, it gets a little talky in the middle for a little bit. The bad guys tend to discuss their plans a lot, a little bit too much. But there is a sufficient amount of action and some pretty good other stars in the film, such as Michael Y. Let me get his name. I really like this guy. Michael Y. Man Chan. Very reliable actor, kind of a tall guy. He was in such films as Mercenaries from Hong Kong. Just, whenever you see him, he's going to give a reliable performance in these films. He shows up at the end, though, as a henchman, and they don't really build up his character. All of a sudden, the bad guys have brought over a ringer to deal with Lo Lei's character. okay? And but knowing the actor, you know that it's going to be a good fight at least. Now, so I don't remember anybody surviving from the Big Boss except Bruce Lee's character. I mean, if my recollection was he wiped out everybody because he's Bruce Lee, damn it. And to see where I ranked the Big Boss, check out my ranking video because I'll give you a hint. It's not at the top, but it's not at the bottom either. So, but it is a great Bruce Lee film for sure. And in that film, he went to Thailand to work with his uncle in an ice factory, and he had a vow of nonviolence, which eventually had to break because of the corruption of the people running the ice factory. It was actually a front for some illegal businesses, and some women were being assaulted and molested, and at the end, he kicked all kinds of ass. Well, in this film, his cousin comes over to Thailand to find out what happened, which actually kind of makes sense. A lot of times when they do that, it's like, oh, my brother's here, your character died in the first movie. Let's get the same actor and say just he's the twin brother. We'll just go with that. Well, this actually makes sense because Bruce Lee went to Thailand to live with his uncle, so this would be his son. So if your dad died in a foreign country working under mysterious circumstances, you might actually go investigate. So it kind of makes sense. So there is a brief Bruce scene. Well, it is a brief scene, and it's also a Bruce scene because Lo Lei lands and he goes to see his cousin, who apparently got arrested at the end of the Big Boss. I don't remember that, but so he's actually played very briefly by Bruce Lee, L-E, 1-E, okay? Not in jail, not wearing a shirt. You know, the jailer says something smart, alecky. I don't know. Yeah, they have a little conversation about it, but he's still mad about the events in the first movie. He's doing Bruce Lee things, very much trying to be Bruce Lee. One of the rare times in a Bruce-exploitation film where someone is actually playing the same character. And they kind of communicate about what needs to be done, and he goes to hunt down the bad guys. Meanwhile, the bad guys are looking for some gold. I guess there was some gold smuggling going on in the ice factory operation, and they talk about it a little bit too much, like I said. Did you get him to tell us where the gold is? Make sure you tell him, get cozy up to that guy, find out where the gold is. Did you find out where the gold is yet? I'm waiting for you to tell me where the gold is. That kind of thing. So, and apparently the bad guys have sort of broken into two camps. You've got one old guy who's kind of like the mastermind, and then there's a breakaway group led by a woman, a very seductive woman, and there is a little bit of nudity in this film, who kind of is very believable as the type of person who would seduce a young man. So she kind of tries to get her hooks into Lo Lei's character for a while, and then he has a chance meeting with a woman at a cemetery, and he starts a relationship with her, and she's nice and wholesome, and the casting of the two actresses is perfect. They're both very good at the type of character they're playing. But it turns out her father is somebody connected to the bad guys. So there's a couple times where he's like, hey, can I come into the house? And she's like, oh, it's not a good time. It's not a good time. So eventually they find out what's going on. And her father actually has this guy working for him. Who I guess he's supposed to be like a shaman. He wears these crazy clothes. He's got like a painted mustache, a very obviously painted mustache. And at one point he knocks Lo Lei's character out with a blowgun. Eventually the two bad guys kind of have a conflict. And it culminates and then at the end it turns into a kitchen sink movie. And so much crazy stuff happens that I felt like I had to go back and watch the whole climax again just to make sure I got this right. So here I am hours later finishing the video. So our hero survives an assassination attempt. Him and his girlfriend kind of escape, and they run out of room, and they're at a river, and there's a speedboat. They jump in, of course. There's one for the bad guys too, of course, because they're, why not? And this is bad guy group number 2, so the one headed by the seductive female. So they're chasing each other, and then all hell breaks loose. Then bad guy group number 1 shows up, and they're all on jet skis. And what do? They cue James Bond music. I'm not kidding. They cue the James Bond music. There's all kinds of shooting going on. The bad guy groups go at each other. The other side, both groups have guns, by the way. But bad guy group number 2 didn't really use them for some reason when they were chasing Lo Lei and his girlfriend. Up until the other bad guy group arrived. So yeah, then they start playing the James Bond music, and it's just all hell breaks loose. Lo Lei and his girlfriend dive into the water, somewhat rather unconvincingly. There's a little wonky editing in a couple parts near the end. But then they're underwater, and there's these long underwater scenes, very murky. It appears to be some of the actual actors, though. So they're trying to escape. One of the bad guys jumps in. They kind of have a fight underwater. Oh, and by the way, while they're underwater, and while the bad guys are shooting each other on the surface, a few crocodiles show up. I'm guessing they're crocodiles, this being Thailand. So our hero Lo Lei, who has a knife, which is a good thing, has to get a little stabby with the crocodiles. And it looks like somebody, if not him, was actually wrestling with the real crocodile at one point. Maybe not the biggest one in the world, but, there was some effort involved in this, let me tell you. Anyway, they survive that. They hit land. Lo Lei ends up fighting with Michael Chan. And then he ends up at what appears to be the same ice factory or ice house from the first film, or at least it looks almost exactly the same. It's kind of cool. It almost looks like that set was abandoned. So he starts having a confrontation with the bad guy, one of the bad guys, and you almost think like, hey, maybe this is abandoned, but then there's some blocks of ice there. So I don't think these blocks of ice were just sitting there for a year without melting. And at one point he slides across them, and since the ice is also cut with a giant saw that comes up and down, that is incorporated into the final fight with predictable results. And then we have to resolve at the end how his girlfriend feels about the final confrontation. And there may, by the way, at this whole time, there's been a mysterious figure wearing disguises who may sort of be an undercover police officer, or he may have some other intentions. I won't tell you the whole movie. But all of this is kind of resolved at the end, and it's a pretty wild ride. Pretty good fight scenes. The fight scene with Lo Lei and Michael Chan is pretty good. Oh, yeah, just overall, it was kind of cool to see him fighting back at the ice factory again. Or not again, another character fighting at a similar ice factory from the first Big Boss movie. Whew. So yes, a very entertaining movie overall, I thought. What are your thoughts? Are you interested in this? Have you even heard of it? Apparently there is another film called Big Boss 2 that is not this film. Okay. Michael Wirth did show it in the special features. And I also went back and rewatched his introduction. He described this as sort of the Sasquatch of Bruceploitation films. The films, the one that people heard about but never saw. So kind of a rare film indeed. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and come back again for another Martial Arts Monday review. Thanks.